Maya had always cherished the quiet moments of her small, sunlit kitchen, where the golden glow of late afternoons spilled over the counter, turning ordinary objects into small treasures. She enjoyed these times most when the house was empty, her niece Layla out with friends, leaving her with nothing but the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional chirping of birds outside. And today was no different until a soft knock at the door startled her from the comfortable rhythm of her routine, and when she opened it, she found Aaron, Layla's boyfriend, standing there, slightly awkward but with a warmth in his smile that made her heart skip in a way she hadn't felt for years, and though she knew it was unusual for him to come by alone, she invited him in politely, trying not to notice the small shift in her pulse as he stepped into the kitchen, the scent of his cologne subtle but familiar enough to stir a sense of curiosity, and they began to talk about simple things at first, the weather, the news, the small details of life, but soon the conversation deepened in ways Maya hadn't anticipated, as Aaron shared little stories from his day in childhood, moments of vulnerability and humor that drew her in, and she found herself laughing more than she had in months, forgetting for a while the routine chores and the quiet loneliness that had settled over her home. As he moved around the kitchen, helping with minor tasks, she noticed the careful way he respected her space, the way his eyes met hers with a softness that hinted at understanding and something unspoken, and it was unsettling and thrilling all at once, like discovering a melody hidden within a familiar song, something she hadn't realized she was missing until now. And as they spoke of shared memories, family moments, and favorite childhood games, Maya felt a connection that was unexpected and powerful, a gentle tug at her heart she tried to ignore because she knew the complications, the lines drawn by family ties. Yet she couldn't help but feel drawn to him, to the ease and warmth of his presence, to the laughter that lightened the weight of years spent alone, and for a brief moment, the kitchen, the light, and the quiet chatter seemed suspended in time, as though the world outside had paused to let them exist in this small bubble of human connection. And just as she was beginning to feel comfortable, the faint sound of a car pulling into the driveway made her pulse race and her stomach twist with sudden panic, realizing that Layla might return at any moment, bringing with her the normalcy, the boundaries, and the social rules that Maya knew she could not break. And yet, even as her mind raced with the warnings and responsibilities, her heart clung to the unexpected warmth of Aaron's company, the subtle thrill of discovery and intimacy that came from sharing laughter, stories, and quiet glances, the kind of connection that seemed rare and precious. And as she glanced at him, noticing the small smile tugging at the corners of his lips and the softness in his eyes, she realized that nothing would ever feel quite the same again after this afternoon, that this moment, simple as it was, had the power to stir emotions she had long thought dormant. And though she knew the evening would end with her niece's return, and life would resume its normal rhythm, the seed of change had already been planted, a gentle, irresistible pull toward feelings she couldn't yet name, toward a new awareness of her own longing, her own vulnerability, her own desire to feel seen and understood. And as Aaron finally moved toward the door, muttering a polite goodbye and lingering just a second longer than necessary, Maya felt a strange mixture of exhilaration and guilt, knowing that the day had shifted in subtle but undeniable ways, that the quiet kitchen, the golden light, the ordinary afternoon had transformed into something unexpected, fragile, and thrilling, leaving her standing there, alone once more, but forever altered, with the echo of laughter and the warmth of connection lingering in the air, a whisper of what could be, a promise of emotions she hadn't anticipated. And as she wiped her hands on her apron, trying to shake off the flutter in her chest, she realized that life had quietly shifted on its axis in that small, sunlit kitchen, that an ordinary afternoon had been transformed into a moment that would stay with her, echoing in her thoughts, in her heart, and in the quiet spaces where longing, attraction, and the thrill of the unexpected quietly coexisted. As the evening deepened, Maya and Aaron continued talking, and what had started as polite small talk gradually unfolded into something far more personal, a stream of conversation that carried them into shared memories, laughter, and unspoken emotions. As Aaron recounted funny incidents from his school days, the way he had gotten lost on a field trip, the time he had accidentally spilled paint on his best friend's shirt, and Maya found herself laughing freely, the sound warm and genuine, filling the quiet spaces of her home that had long been filled with routine and silence. She spoke in return, telling him about her niece's childhood adventures, the holidays that had been full of joy and chaos, the small victories and disappointments that had shaped her family, and Aaron listened intently, nodding, smiling, leaning in ever so slightly, not in a way that demanded intimacy but in a way that made her feel understood, seen, and appreciated. And as he shared more personal stories, moments of vulnerability about his own life, the challenges he faced, the fears he had harbored in silence, Maya felt a growing sense of connection, an emotional resonance that surprised her, as if she and Aaron were stepping into a delicate dance where words, glances, and silences all conveyed something deeper, something neither of them fully acknowledged but both felt intensely, the way he smiled when she teased him gently, the way his eyes softened when she recounted a difficult memory, the subtle tone in his voice when he expressed gratitude for small things, all created a tender atmosphere, and Maya realized that she was leaning into the conversation, leaning into his presence, savoring the warmth and attention in a way that was unfamiliar yet comforting. And as they spoke about shared interests, books, music, movies, Mia noticed how their tastes overlapped, how laughter came easily between them, how the hours slipped by unnoticed, and she was aware of a quiet tension beneath the casual conversation, a feeling that lingered in the pauses, in the moments when their hands brushed while passing teacups, in the way their eyes met and held each other just a second too long, a silent acknowledgement that something was shifting, something neither of them could define yet could not ignore. She felt a flutter of emotions she hadn't anticipated, a mixture of longing, curiosity, and a gentle attraction that was subtle but undeniable, and though she tried to maintain composure, the sensation of being seen, of being appreciated, of being valued in a way that transcended polite conversation, made her pulse quicken, and she wondered if Aaron noticed it too, if he too felt the same quiet pull that she couldn't resist. And yet she also knew that boundaries existed, that her niece's presence, even in absentia, and the social rules they lived by, imposed limits on what could be expressed openly, which made the tension all the more poignant and bittersweet. At one point, Aaron laughed at a memory Maya shared of a family trip, a trip where Layla had gotten sunburned on her nose and he had teased her mercilessly, and the sound of his laughter, rich and sincere, sent a shiver of unexpected warmth through her, a gentle thrill that she hadn't experienced in years, and she realized that the room, the evening, the simple act of sharing stories, had become a space where they could connect beyond casual friendship, a space charged with subtle emotion, with the kind of intimacy that isn't spoken but deeply felt, and it both frightened and exhilarated her. As the conversation moved to more reflective topics, Aaron spoke about his hopes for the future, the dreams he carried quietly, the fears he had not shared with anyone else, and Maya found herself offering her own thoughts, advice, and encouragement, and in that exchange, a delicate bond formed, one built not on physical attraction but on emotional resonance, trust, and the rare understanding that comes when two people share vulnerabilities without judgment. And though she tried to keep the feeling in check, she was acutely aware of how different it felt to talk to him than to anyone else in recent memory, how the air between them was charged with something unspoken yet profound. Time seemed to stretch and contract as they moved from light-hearted laughter to quiet reflections, from teasing anecdotes to heartfelt confessions, and Maya noticed small details she had never paid attention to before, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the slight hesitation before he spoke about sensitive topics, the gentle attentiveness in the way he listened, the care with which he avoided intruding on her personal space while still staying close enough to feel present, and with each observation, her heart both ached and fluttered, a confusing mix of longing and caution, excitement and restraint, and the more they talked, the more she realized that this connection, this unexpected intimacy, had shifted something inside her, making her question feelings she had long buried, feelings she hadn't acknowledged because they seemed impractical, impossible, or inappropriate, and yet now, sitting there in her cozy kitchen, with the warm light spilling across the table and the quiet evening wrapping around them, she could not deny that something tender, delicate, and profoundly moving was unfolding, a quiet recognition that emotional attraction could exist without action, that longing could be felt without violation, that hearts could connect across boundaries without necessarily crossing them, and this realization both thrilled and terrified her, making her pulse race while her mind raced with caution. As Aaron began to help with simple tasks, clearing teacups, folding napkins, his movements careful and unhurried, Maya observed him with a new attention, noticing the subtle care in his gestures, the thoughtfulness in his words, the warmth in his tone, and she felt an unexpected comfort, a rare sense of being fully present with someone who respected her space, her history, and her feelings, and in that comfort lay a bittersweet ache, because she understood the complexity of what she felt, knew the impossibility of certain desires, yet could not help the deepening bond. The way her heart leaned toward him even as her mind whispered caution, hours seemed to pass like minutes, the conversation flowing naturally, seamlessly, as though they had known each other far longer than a few casual encounters and family obligations would allow, and Maya felt herself opening up, revealing little things she hadn't shared with anyone in years, memories of her late husband, the dreams she had once held, the quiet regrets that lingered in the corners of her mind, and Aaron listened with an attentiveness that made her feel honored, validated, and cherished, and in that attention, that simple act of listening, something shifted inside her, a fragile hope, a quiet yearning, a recognition that emotional connection could awaken dormant feelings without needing to overstep boundaries, and this understanding brought tears she fought to blink back, because it was both beautiful and painful, exhilarating and impossible, a paradox she could not untangle yet could not deny, and as the sun dipped lower, painting the kitchen in amber tones and casting long shadows across the walls, Aaron finally stood, stretching slightly, a hint of hesitation in his movements as though he, too, sensed the fragile tension, the unspoken attraction, and as he moved toward the door, he turned to her with a quiet smile, a soft murmur of thanks for the company and conversation, and Maya felt a pang of longing mixed with relief, knowing the evening had ended yet recognizing that it had changed something fundamental in both of them, that the shared laughter, the confessions, the gentle intimacy of presence, had left an indelible mark on her heart, a quiet whisper that perhaps life could surprise her with connection, understanding, and tender emotion when she least expected it. And as the door closed behind him, Maya stood alone in the warm glow of the kitchen, feeling the echo of his presence, the resonance of shared stories, and the stirring of emotions she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years, and she realized that this evening, seemingly ordinary, had been extraordinary in the subtle ways that matter most, the quiet attention, the soft laughter, the shared vulnerability, and the unexpected emotional closeness, and she knew that when her niece returned, life would resume its usual rhythm, but the memory of Aaron's visit, the unexpected intimacy of conversation, and the gentle pull of connection would linger, a quiet, thrilling, bittersweet reminder that sometimes the heart notices what the mind would rather ignore, and sometimes the simplest evenings can shift everything inside, leaving a space for longing, hope, and the gentle thrill of the unexpected to quietly take root, growing slowly, imperceptibly, yet undeniably, in the corners of one's heart where new stories wait to begin. After Layla had gone to her room, Maya felt the house shift into a quieter rhythm, a different energy settling into the spaces that had seemed so ordinary before, and Aaron, still lingering in the kitchen, moved with a casual ease, picking up stray cups and wiping crumbs from the counter, but his presence now carried a different weight, a subtle intensity that Maya could not ignore, the kind of quiet attention that made her heart race while her mind tried to remind her of boundaries and propriety, yet failed to extinguish the warmth blooming within her chest, as he leaned slightly closer while speaking, his voice gentle and sincere, telling her he had enjoyed the conversation, that it had been rare to feel such ease with someone in a short time, and Maya felt an unexpected flutter, a mixture of surprise and longing, because she had not anticipated feeling seen, understood, and appreciated in ways she hadn't realized she had missed, and yet the awareness of her niece upstairs made every glance, every movement, charged with unspoken tension, delicate and thrilling, a dance of emotions that neither dared name aloud but both felt acutely. He asked her softly about her days, about the little moments that brought joy or frustration, and she responded in kind, finding herself opening up more than she had with anyone in recent memory, speaking of hopes she had once held, regrets she still carried, the quiet ache of moments she wished she could relive, and Aaron listened with careful attention, never interrupting, never prying beyond what she offered. And in that careful listening, a connection formed that was subtle but profound, a shared emotional intimacy that neither of them could fully articulate, yet both understood. And as the conversation drifted from light-hearted anecdotes to more reflective topics, Maya found herself laughing and sighing in turns, feeling a strange combination of exhilaration and vulnerability. A tension that made her pulse quicken and her thoughts scatter, because each word, each smile, each pause seemed weighted with meaning, even when it was unspoken, and the awareness of their growing closeness made her feel both guilty and exhilarated, as though she were standing at the edge of something forbidden yet incredibly human. A meeting of hearts that was impossible to deny yet impossible to act upon without consequence. At one point, Aaron spoke of his own experiences with love, his voice low and careful, sharing moments of disappointment, moments of quiet longing, the heartbreaks that shaped him, and Maya felt an aching resonance, a soft echo of her own past, the pain of love lost and the yearning for connection that had lingered far too long, and as he spoke, she realized how deeply she was drawn to his empathy, his understanding, the warmth in his tone, and the subtle strength in his presence, the way he seemed to hold a space for her emotions without judgment, without expectation, and she wanted to reach out, to touch that comfort, that safety, yet knew the boundaries that had to be honored, and that awareness only made the pull stronger, the tension more delicious, the emotions more vivid, a storm contained in quiet gestures, fleeting glances, and the soft cadence of shared voices. They talked about the little joys of life too, favorite meals, walks in the park, memories of childhood adventures, and Aaron smiled at her animated stories, laughed gently at her teasing, and Maya noticed the careful attentiveness in his gaze, the way he tilted his head, the faint lift of his eyebrows when he was curious, the tiny, almost imperceptible movements that conveyed his interest and care, and she felt herself leaning in, not physically, but emotionally, drawn to him with a force she had not expected, a magnetic pull that made her heart beat faster, that made the air between them feel charged, a gentle electricity that was both exhilarating and frightening. There were moments of silence, too, pregnant with meaning, the kind of silence that speaks louder than words, when Aaron would pause after a story, look at her with an expression that seemed to ask for understanding, for acknowledgement, for connection, and Maya would meet his gaze, feeling the warmth, the tenderness, the subtle attraction that neither of them dared name, and in those moments, the room seemed to shrink, the walls close in slightly, the air thick with anticipation, and yet safe, respectful, and gentle, a paradox of emotion that left her breathless and aware of every detail, every nuance of his presence. At one point, he reached for a teacup she had been holding, their fingers brushing lightly. The touch so fleeting that it could be dismissed, yet Maya felt a shock of warmth, a thrill that traveled through her chest and settled in her stomach, and she realized that even the smallest gestures were laden with meaning, that the emotional connection they had built in hours of conversation could make a simple touch feel monumental, and the awareness of this closeness made her heart ache with desire she could not act upon, longing she could not fully express, and she wondered if he felt the same, if he too experienced the flutter, the tension, the pull that danced between them, unspoken but undeniable. As Aaron spoke again, his voice soft, filled with subtle emotion, he confessed quietly that he had not expected to feel so connected, that he appreciated the honesty and warmth of their conversation, that he rarely met someone who could listen, understand, and respond with such depth, and Maya felt a mixture of relief and thrill, comforted by his sincerity and stirred by the intensity of her own feelings, a maelstrom contained in smiles, glances, and words exchanged with care, and she realized that she had never felt so seen, so understood, so emotionally tethered to someone in such a short span, and the realization made her heart both heavy and light, full of longing yet grateful for the human connection that had unexpectedly blossomed. The evening moved forward with moments of laughter, quiet reflection, and gentle teasing, the kind of easy companionship that carries weight beneath the surface, and Maya noticed subtle shifts in herself, a softening, a curiosity, a willingness to explore emotions she had long set aside, a recognition that life could surprise her in ways she hadn't imagined, that a single evening, a single conversation, could awaken dormant feelings, stir the heart, and create a memory that lingered with the weight of something tender, meaningful, and deeply human. As they finished tidying the kitchen, Aaron paused, glancing at her with a soft, almost hesitant smile, and said, "I should probably go before Layla comes down, but I wanted you to know this meant a lot to me," and Maya felt a sudden, sharp pang of emotion, a mix of gratitude, longing, and bittersweet ache, because she knew the truth of boundaries, of responsibilities, of family, yet also felt the undeniable resonance of their connection, the quiet thrill of being emotionally understood, the flutter of attraction tempered by respect, and as he finally stepped toward the door, Maya found herself holding her breath, aware of the lingering weight of his presence, the warmth in his eyes, the unspoken acknowledgement of the fragile, delicate tension that existed between them, and she realized that this unexpected intimacy had shifted something fundamental inside her, that emotions she had long suppressed now stirred vividly, tenderly, a whisper of longing, a spark of attraction, a recognition that sometimes the heart notices what the mind cannot, and sometimes connection arrives when least expected, leaving a trail of warmth, questions, and possibilities that cannot be ignored, that linger in the quiet spaces after someone leaves, in the pauses between thoughts, in the gentle ache of a heart that has glimpsed what it wants but cannot yet claim. And as Maya stood alone in her quiet kitchen, bathed in the soft glow of evening light, she understood that this night, this conversation, had changed her, that Aaron's presence had opened a door to emotions she had not allowed herself to feel, and that the memory of this unexpected closeness would stay with her, a tender, thrilling reminder that life can surprise, hearts can connect, and even the briefest moments of honesty, care, and understanding can leave a mark that echoes long after the person has gone, leaving questions, longing, and a quiet hope that the story was only beginning, that emotions so carefully nurtured could bloom gently over time, that connection, once felt, leaves an indelible impression, and that in the spaces between words, between gestures, between glances, the heart notices, remembers, and waits with anticipation for what comes next. The night settled into a calm quiet, the soft glow of the kitchen lights casting long shadows across the counters, and Maya stood alone, feeling the lingering warmth of Aaron's presence, the echo of his laughter, the gentle resonance of his voice that had filled the room with unexpected comfort and a subtle tension that neither of them had dared to name, yet both had felt deeply, and as she wiped her hands on her apron, she realized how profoundly the evening had changed her, how a simple visit, a shared conversation, had stirred emotions she had long believed dormant, emotions that blended longing, admiration, and an unspoken attraction that existed carefully within the boundaries of respect and propriety, and she could still feel the weight of his attentive gaze, the warmth of his gestures, the quiet intensity of his presence, and the memory of it all sent a thrill through her chest, a mixture of exhilaration and hesitation. Because she knew what she felt was delicate, tender, and perhaps impossible, yet undeniably real, and she couldn't ignore it, couldn't dismiss the emotional shift that had occurred in the span of a few short hours. As she reflected on the evening, Maya's mind wandered over every word spoken, every glance shared, every fleeting touch, even the smallest brush of fingers when passing a cup or arranging dishes, and she felt the subtle electricity of connection, the kind that awakens the heart, stirs the imagination, and leaves a lingering sense of anticipation, a quiet longing for moments that may never fully exist but leave an indelible impression, a memory she could carry in the soft corners of her mind where desire, hope, and human connection quietly intertwine. She thought of Aaron, his calm confidence, his gentle attentiveness, the way he had listened without judgment, the way he had shared his own vulnerabilities with a quiet honesty that invited trust, and she realized that what had happened tonight was rare, something beyond ordinary companionship, something that touched the heart in ways that words alone could not capture, a tender, intricate weaving of emotion and understanding that made her feel alive in ways she had almost forgotten were possible, and yet she also felt the pull of responsibility, of boundaries that must be respected, because Layla was her niece, and she could not allow emotions to overstep what was proper, making the thrill of connection bittersweet, a delicate balance between yearning and restraint. The memory of Aaron's soft smiles, the warmth of his voice, the careful consideration in his movements, lingered vividly, a constant reminder of the emotional intimacy they had shared, a spark of something powerful that could neither be ignored nor acted upon recklessly, and Maya found herself walking slowly to the window, looking out at the quiet street, imagining him walking home, wondering if he too felt the weight of their interaction, the stirring of emotions that went beyond friendship, the subtle recognition of connection that had sparked so unexpectedly, and the thought filled her with both longing and hope, a combination that was tender, exhilarating, and slightly frightening. She reflected on the laughter they had shared, the stories exchanged, the small confessions of hope, fear, and memory, and she realized that these moments, though simple and fleeting, carried profound meaning, a reminder that human connection can appear when least expected, that hearts can align quietly across the space of conversation, that understanding and empathy can ignite emotions that touch the soul in ways that nothing else can, and she felt a quiet gratitude for having experienced it, a recognition that life had provided her with a glimpse of something rare and beautiful, something that could coexist with boundaries, respect, and propriety without diminishing the depth of feeling. Maya moved through her kitchen slowly, touching the counters, the cups, the small details that had witnessed the evening's events, and she felt the echo of Aaron's presence in every corner, a soft reminder that connection, once felt, leaves traces that linger long after someone has gone, and in that lingering presence, she found both comfort and ache, a delicate mixture of joy and melancholy, because the heart remembers, feels, and yearns even when circumstances prevent action, and she understood that tonight had shifted something fundamental within her, something subtle yet undeniable, a quiet awakening of the capacity to feel, to long, to hope, and to recognize beauty in connection, even when it is constrained by responsibility. She thought about the choices that lay ahead, the conversations she would have with herself, the care she must take in navigating her emotions without causing hurt or crossing boundaries, and yet the awareness of possibility, of emotional resonance, of the rare and precious intimacy they had shared, filled her with a gentle thrill, a soft flame that glowed warmly in her chest, reminding her that life could surprise, that hearts could connect unexpectedly, that even a brief encounter could leave a lasting imprint on the soul, and she realized that she would carry the memory of this night with her, not as regret, not as longing for the impossible, but as a testament to the beauty of human connection, the tenderness of understanding, and the quiet power of shared moments that leave the heart richer, fuller, and more alive. She remembered Aaron's careful words, the subtle way he had expressed admiration without pressure, the quiet respect he had shown for her space, her history, and her feelings, and she marveled at the emotional intelligence, the sensitivity, the kindness that had made her feel seen and valued in ways she had almost forgotten were possible, and in this reflection, she felt a warmth that was both comforting and intoxicating, a recognition that meaningful connection can transcend circumstance, that attraction can exist in restraint, that emotions can thrive in honesty, care, and mutual respect, and she understood that the evening had planted seeds of awareness, tenderness, and longing that would grow quietly, imperceptibly, but undeniably in her heart, leaving her attuned to subtleties, open to empathy, and aware of the profound impact simple gestures, attentive listening, and shared laughter can have on the soul. As she finally prepared for bed, her movements slow, deliberate, reflective, she carried the memory of the evening with her, the soft glow of kitchen lights, the sound of Aaron's laughter, the gentle cadence of his voice, the subtle pull of emotions that had awakened something deep within her, and she felt a gentle hope, not for immediate fulfillment, not for reckless pursuit, but for the quiet possibility that life, in its unexpected ways, could offer moments of connection, intimacy, and understanding, moments that leave the heart enriched, alive, and tender, moments that remind a person of the beauty, complexity, and depth of human emotion, and she knew that even though the night had ended, the door had closed, and Aaron was gone, the imprint of his presence, the subtle thrill of attraction, the warmth of shared vulnerability, and the quiet acknowledgement of emotional intimacy would remain with her, a delicate, powerful reminder that hearts notice what minds cannot always define, that connections, once formed, leave traces that linger, that longing, admiration, and the gentle thrill of unspoken attraction can coexist with boundaries, respect, and love for family, and that even the briefest moments of honesty, care, and attention can transform an ordinary evening into a memory that resonates, teaches, and gently shifts the way one feels, thinks, and perceives the world, leaving the heart open, tender, and quietly alive for what may come next, in ways both subtle and profound, in ways that make life, with all its rules, routines, and relationships, feel richer, fuller, and infinitely more human.